Okay, my friends, you're about to be astounded. They found from the Veterans Administration that fecal transplants are good medicine for stubborn infections. Virtually all stubborn infections, including cancer. All right, you see this? This is a government-controlled website. Anti-tumor effects of fecal microbiota transplants, implications for microbiota modulation in cancer treatment. This just came out a few months ago. They're finally realizing that everything is related to the bacteria. You see this? They even realize now that rapid resolution of COVID after fecal microbiota transplantation. You don't have to die from COVID. And they don't give this to anybody. You can't have it. It's against the law to have a fecal microbiota transplant. It's against the law. Okay, get prepared because this is a shocker. This is AME certified PCR laboratories. All they do is testing of bacterial infectious things using PCR, which amplifies so they can know immediately if there's any threat to the food supply. And that's what they do. And they do it all over the world. All of us at AME Laboratories are working for years to provide testing equipment and supplies for professionals all over the world. They provide the infrastructure for these people to do this stuff. Their certified engineers and technicians strive to make sure those who are using testing equipment can do it so in the most efficient and effective manner possible. They provide state-of-the-art technology and training at the absolute lowest cost so that you can support, validate, and advance your programs to the best of your ability. This is for worldwide. They have labs all over the world. And here's Andy right here. And he's a bacterial surveillance system engineer, genetic detection system engineer. He's a triple PhD. And that's what they do is PCR testing. This is that's the top end of bacterial testing. And we spent, or at least 2 hours or more, discussing all of the little details. And Andy backs me up 100%. Not a syllable I said did he have any disagreement with. If you have a disagreement with what I'm saying, I will get Andy together with me and we will do a video discussing it. If you have a problem with what I'm saying, because you're going to see some it's astounding, absolutely astounding what they have discovered with bacteria. And this is the guy that knows bacteria better than anybody in the world. Here's another one, National Library of Medicine. This is a government site. Fecal matter transplant. Is it safe? Yes, it is. Generally considered safe and well tolerated, even in high-risk patients. Now, I'm sure I go over this again, but in 1978, it was realized that the fecal matter transplant, widely recognized as a treatment for reoccurring C. diff, which killed people. In over 95% of cases, the cure was quick and permanent. Now they realize it cures everything. Cancer, COVID, virtually everything. Here's Yale University a few years back. Eat, poop, and live back in January 2016. Right around 2015, 2016, this research was becoming very, very understood, and it was fought back against by the medical industry, who sees this as a money destroyer. Basically, this is going to take money out of their pockets, and I think that's the reason they won't allow you to have this. It's against the law to have a fecal matter transplant. Now, Trump put in something called right to use or right to try and these medical treatments. Instead of being dictated against by the legal system, you can't get healthy. So literally, that's what they're telling you. You cannot eat poop to live. And that will make you healthy. And they even in the VA article, it said that the different delivery methods didn't matter, whether capsules or colonoscopy type of insertion, that type of thing. My point being here is that we are being misled by the people that are supposed to be put in charge of making us healthy. They are in charge of making us sick and keeping us sick. See this? This is straight from the CDC back in 2015. This was the big deal going on then. 29,000 approximately patients died within 30 days of the initial diagnosis of C. diff. If they had gotten a fecal matter transplant, they would have been cured. It's 95% effective. They've got 500,000 people, and it's costing, up back then, was over $4.8 billion a year, and all kinds of terrible, terrible distress to people. It's not needed. Hippocrates, all disease begins in the gut. Absolutely correct. Once it breaks that barrier, which is called the interstitium, you're done. Then you're infected, and that is called a tumor when it's cancer. When it's COVID and so forth, it's just a general infection and inflammation and destruction of the collagen materials that are the rubbery materials in your lungs and your blood vessels and all that stuff, and it just collapses. All right, I'm just going to start off with this. We're going to be talking about fecal matter transplants, which is nothing more than putting good bacteria into somebody that has bad bacteria. Bad bacteria causes all kinds of diseases, virtually all kinds of diseases. But we're going to be talking about C. diff because that's the one that kills just thousands and thousands of people. 500,000 people get it every year. Now, these are the poop pills. And this is what literally puts the new bacteria in your gut. All right, and this is by Dr. Ligia Thomas, and she's writing about the human intestine harboring a large range of microbes, which is bacteria. They number up to 10 to the 14 zeros. All right, there's 10-fold higher than the number of cells that make you. So I'm only 10% me. The rest is the rest of the cells are the cells that actually maintain my body. My body is just a housing for these bacteria. Literally, it's just basically that's what's happening. The bacteria work with the chemistry. The chemistry is what you eat, and it breaks it down, and then it reconforms it to do whatever it wants to do with it. And it makes you and builds you. The part of you that is you, the structural part of you, that doesn't make any chemistry. That uses chemistry. And then it consumes stuff, and then it has waste. The bacteria are the ones that break down that waste, and they break down the food that comes into your body that you eat so that it can be broken down to the molecules that the bacteria, again, can construct things with and carry them around to do whatever they want with them. We are nothing more than a house of bacteria. You see this? You asked me, where is all this bacteria and this gut stuff? Here it is right here. Gut-associated lymphoid tissue. You never realize this, but you don't have just artery and vein tubes in you. You have a whole other system. It's called the lymph system. And I'm going to show you that in a second. And here it is right here. Lymphoid tissue. Right there, that layer is the gut-associated. Gut-associated. Comes down into here and picks up all of the different enzymes that this allows to come through with this layer right here. That's the layer of this submucosa, whatever they want to call it. It's below the tissue. There's a layer that is the interstitium fluid-filled highway, and that is it right there. It's the lymphoid tissue. The fluid-filled highway means fluid-filled is not blood. It's the lymph system. All right, let me just point this out real quick. Remember I told you that one little layer there is the fluid-filled highway. That was what I showed you here is the fluid-filled highway that runs around all the tubing in your body, and especially in your gut. These are all different areas in your gut. This is digestive juices and so forth that are picking up all of these enzymes. Now you have lymph nodes. Now I'm going to show you what this fluid-filled highway is all about. This is it right here. This is the lymph system. You see these tubes here? First of all, look at what you got here. You got red and blue. That's vein and artery. The blue is the vein, the red is artery, still has extra oxygen. Now, that comes down to service all of the things that need to be oxygenated, basically, and brought stuff into it. Now, in addition, these are the the lymph node ducts. And they bring all the dump. All the dump comes down here and trash comes in its own specific system. This is not part of the blood. You see these tubes? Let me show you what they look like on their own. This is what these things look like. This is what an artery looks like. This is a vein, and this is the lymph system. 3 different tubing systems in the body. Nobody ever talks about this. The artery can go this way, that way, this way, this way. It doesn't matter. What red blood goes down until it has nowhere else to go, and it forces itself through capillaries, little tiny spots there, and it forces it to come out the other side into the vein. And once it goes through the vein, these are valves. It looks like it would go this way. All right. Yeah, and this one goes this way too. So once it goes up here, it comes back, the valve clamps off. The same thing with here. It goes up through this way, tries to come back, it just pinches tight. So that gives you only one direction, because once this stuff is bad, it's bad. Same thing with the blood. Once you use it up and it goes from the artery side to the vein side, you can't let it go backwards. Otherwise, it's going to contaminate you. So it has to go back into your liver and your lungs and all that stuff to get cleaned up. Now, lymph, same situation. It can only go this direction. And where does it go? It goes to the lymph node, which is this right here. All right. Now, what does the lymph node do? The lymph node is a dump. And at the dump, you have guys that have to clean up all the dump. And that's got to be these enzymes. And where the enzymes come from is the bacteria. The bacteria is going to be living in there. Now, I don't know whether it's going to be living in this layer. At the time this book was written, they didn't know really about this fluid-filled highway. I don't think. They might have, I don't know. I don't see it showing up in here. And this is a very, very detailed book. So I just think at the time they didn't really consider it. Because this, right, number 3, is the marginal lymphatic sinus, which is the fascia that coats this. Then right below that is that non-invadable area, which is the interstitium, and has the fluid-filled highway. So, but it also is part of the lymph node. So anyway, the bad stuff comes in. Got to be dealt with. If it can't be dealt with, it breaks through the lymph nodes. And then you get lymph cancer. And it spreads out into the good tissue and starts feeding off of the good tissue, which is the bad bacteria. You have to have both good and bad bacteria. Because you got to break down cells and everything else. You got to break down your own body. You got things dying in you right now. And they go here, and they get all broken up, and out they go. That's fine. But once you break them down, then they should stop. But sometimes they don't. And why? Because there's other ones that are supposed to intervene and say, hey, that's enough. That's enough. You guys are getting a little out of control here. And then they come, and the other bacteria, which is almost the same species, basically, but it has another little click to it. It comes in and turns it off. Basically, that's how they work. One works against the other. And it's like a standoff. It's a standoff at that little area there. And enzymes are the product of the bacteria. Now, I just told you they found 30,000 new ones just accidentally. And then they found 10,000, I guess, in babies that they had no clue they were there either. The baby's digestive system, 100% different than a big, an adult. And here it is right here. This is what the baby's digestive system here is. It's of a newborn. It's unlike the adult. All right. The fetal digestive system, the baby type of digestive system, does not have a digestive function. It doesn't. It's getting ready to be programmed. The stomach and the intestine are reduced, while the liver, this is interesting, with its hemophytic functions, is proportionally much more developed. The liver is very large. You see, look at the size of the liver. Now, the liver usually is a detoxifier. but it needs enzymes as far as I'm concerned. Now they're saying it doesn't have a digestive system. I'm not sure what that means. The digestive system normally would be down in here. There's a lot to look at, but anyway, there is differences between newborns and adults, and there's a transition phase. And all of these chemicals and all of these enzymes and all of these bacteria and all of this fluid-filled highway all plays a part in being sick or being healthy. And if you don't have this bacteria right here, these kind of bacteria, and there's hundreds of thousands of them, literally, they have their own DNA, but their own DNA says, I am the kind of little bacteria, I'm going to have one little flagella. Some of them don't have flagella, some of them have 10 of them. I'm going to have one flagella, and I am going to create this little thing right here. That's my job in life, is to do that, and I create that. And that squirts out of there like a little ball of beads, just like this. Just like that. And those ball of beads are what they call polypeptides. And they come out just like that. And then they get programmed into RNA, which is the killer RNA. That's the enzyme. Basically, it's an enzyme. And it's made of all these 20 different amino acids. So you got a ton of variation in programming that can come out of it. And you have thousands and thousands of different enzymes and protein bacteria. You got thousands of different bacteria. And every one of them makes a different one of this type of ribosome. The ribosome is the chemistry set that I just showed you. The ribosome creates this right here. See, it's the ribosome. That creates all of the chemistry that balls up into something just like this after it makes all of the bits and pieces. And it goes, brrr, and that is going to be the enzyme. And that really is exactly identical to a virus. There is no difference whatsoever. They are identical. A virus is an enzyme is a virus. They're not alive. They're chunks of these programs. They're programs. And they're encapsulated. And they have a magnetic signature. And that magnetic signature goes around the body until it finds a bacteria. It says, this is what you have right here. And all these little colors mean something. And this started out squirting out little balls from the back of a bacteria. Here's what happens. They squirt out the little balls. Bada bing. And where do they go? They go like this. And then the sheath comes off, and then they squirt out their enzyme or bacteria or protein. It's the same thing. Bacteria, enzyme, protein, all the same thing. No difference whatsoever. Virus, enzyme, protein. Bacteria is different. Bacteria squirts these out. These unsheath into these elegant little chemistry packages. And every bacteria makes its own specific molecule like this. If it was like this and all it was like this, click, you got a different molecule. I mean, a different bacteria, a different enzyme. I'm sorry, a different enzyme, because the bacteria is what squirted out all this stuff, and after all that stuff came out in a big long chain, it went brrrr, and it all balled up into something just like that. And all that is magnetism. And the magnetism looks for something that has that same magnetic signature and says, I either work with you or I don't. I either kill you or I love you. I either break you into little pieces or I construct you into bigger things. That's what these do. They're just unbelievably powerful little buggers. And that's all coming out of that bacteria. I mean, it's just beyond belief, really. That's the thing that makes that little program. That's the program. It's not just a bunch of little things like this accidentally floating out of there. That is, boom, exactly like that every time. And all of those magnetic signatures are unique. It's like just like the most complicated fingerprint you could ever have. And each one of them relates to a bacteria. And the bacterias have different energy levels. Somewhere around talks about, here it is right here, a comparison of electron flow. Well, the electron flow is different between different colors. and that's the electron flow. Green, sulfur, heliobacteria, purple bacteria. Why is there a different electron flow? Because there are different transition metals that make those different colors. And you say, well, show me that. Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's the different transition metals. And what are all these different pluses and so forth down here? You have a metal core, all right? This is the central core, and then you have little pinchers that pinch onto other molecules. They're called ligands. All right, they're a group of ligands that attach to the metal ion in aqueous solution, water, blood, into your blood. The ions form complexes with the color shown to the right. That's why a lot of the fossil stuff I work with has all kind of different colors. Just remember, these are the chemistry that grab onto things in your blood, carry them down, and drop them off. That's why you have iron. You have +2 and +3 state. One of them is deoxygenated. The 2 has no oxygen left. The 3 has the extra oxygen. So don't forget, we got chemistry of colors. We got electron flow is related to the color. All right? And the same thing with light. The same thing with light. The color is always related to the energy level. All right? It's a spectrum. The color always related to the energy level. So there's so much to think about here. It's overwhelming. Okay, my friends, if you've been following me, I've been posting a whole batch of stuff about the gut relationship to your entire health system in your body, because it goes through the fluid-filled highway. And these are all these bacteria that, they normally say, oh, they're bad for your bacteria. No, not necessarily at all. Now, this is from 1958. They published an article about antibiotic-associated diarrhea being treated with FMT through enemas. The patients recovered promptly and well from the diarrhea. That's in 1958. This is the history of fecal matter transplants. So now 20 years later, they say, despite the volume of empirical evidence, it was only in 1978 the value of this fecal matter transplant was widely recognized in treating the intestinal condition called C. diff. This is Clostridium difficile, C. diff. That's the kind of diarrhea. It's resistant. You can't stop it, and it kills you because you're not digesting. Now, it actually cured her. In over 95% of the cases, the cure was quick and permanent. This goes back to 1978, and I've been showing the cost of CDI now because they won't let you have this. You can't have the fecal matter transplant until you fail the drugs 3 times. I think that's insane. But let's go on about what I have to show you. Everything changed since they discovered the interstitium layer. The whole medical field should have changed and understood the importance of this interstitium layer, which is basically your lymphatic system. Now, this is the cost of C. diff, which is this Clostridium difficile. And this is an official website of the United States government. They understand how expensive this is, and it's in billions and billions of dollars. And the cost of care for individuals with community-associated CDI, that's just if you just get it walking around, was for between $800,000 and $16,000 respectively in the 6 months after CDI diagnosis. And a lot of them died. A lot of them actually died. And then they take all this antibiotics, and that causes you more problems normally. Okay, so what am I proposing? If this is going to be 95% cases are cured quick and permanently using fecal matter transplant for this exact same condition, no difference whatsoever, I think the patient should be offered the opportunity to have either or. They shouldn't have to fail the drugs 3 times. Those drugs are not cheap, and they are, they still have to go through this, issue for quite some time. This says, I mean, and when they say quick, they mean quick, a matter of days. In a matter literally of days, everything's back to normal again. Or you know, you go through a little diarrhea and you have some gut distress in the very, very beginning, a few days, it could last a week maybe, of readjusting your digestive system to throwing out the bad guys and bringing in the good guys. That's a traumatic system change. So you're going to have some gut distress, obviously, but that goes away very quickly. That's what the research shows.